Have you recently taken the IELTS test but didn't get the score that you wanted? If this is the case, then this video is for you. Now, according to IELTS experts and the official IDP IELTS website, there are 5 tips that can significantly help you if you are retaking the IELTS exam. So in this video, we will look at what these tips are and how you can use them, starting with tip number 1, which is taking a break. Now, you've received your results and you checked them and you didn't quite get the results that you wanted. Well, the first thing you should do here is take a break from IELTS. And that's because naturally you might feel a bit upset, which is understandable. So if you go out and start to study straight away, again, you are not studying under your best performance. You're going to be tired when you study. You're not going to be able to concentrate when you study. So it is better for you to take a break before you start studying again. Now, how long should you take a break for? Is it 30 minutes? No. Is it a day? Probably a little bit longer. Really, that all depends on you. Okay, some people, they take a break for a month. Some people take a break for 2 or 3 months. That completely depends on you and your circumstance. But from what I've seen, that the people who perform the best after a break are those people who took a break for the amount of time they needed. So one person, for example, they might feel refreshed after 3 weeks and they might be ready to study again. For you, it might take you 2 months. So it depends on the individual, but you should take a break and start to study again when you are motivated to study again. The next thing you should do is reflect on what went wrong. So what you should do is analyze your results and focus on 2 things. The first thing that you should look at is look at the areas which you perform the best in. And the second thing that you should do is the opposite. Look at the areas which you performed the worst in. So, for example, you might have scored a band 6 for writing, a band 5.5 for speaking and listening, and a band 5 in reading. So, in this case, you will know that writing is the area which you performed the best in, and reading was the area which you performed the worst in. So, once we have this information, we want to use this information, and here's how you should use it. So you look at the score which you performed the worst in. So again, reading, it was a 5, and then you look at what score you are trying to achieve. So for example, if you are trying to attain a band 6.5 in reading, then you will know that you are 1.5 band away from achieving that result. So now that you have this information, what we do next is take a practice exam in the area which you struggled in. So in this case, we would take a practice reading test and see what results you got. Then analyze your practice test and look at which question types you found the most difficult. Okay, now to improve and get a higher score, you want to focus on the question types. So for example, if you found matching heading questions the most difficult question type, then when you are practicing, you don't need to practice the whole reading exam over and over and over again. You can just focus on the matching heading questions. And that's because that's the area which required the most work. And you can apply this method to any part of the IELTS exam. So if you, for example, found writing the most difficult, then you would do the same thing with writing or listening or speaking. Another thing you can do regarding this step is to make an action plan. So an action plan is similar to a revision guide. However, the majority of your time should be spent on focusing on the weaker areas rather than the areas which you are already doing well in. Now, if this means that you need to improve on 2 areas, that's fine, okay? Hopefully it will only be 1, but if it's more than 1, make sure you equally prioritize each section. And also, if you have any specific questions about how to improve in certain areas, you are more than welcome to send me a message on Instagram or leave a comment in the comment section below. That way I will reply to you and other people can benefit from your question as well. So we're trying to build a community here where we can help each other. Now, tip number 3 is focusing on areas that require attention. Now, we've kind of talked about this in the past tip, but what you should not be doing is focusing on areas that don't need any further improvements. For example, if you are getting a band 8 in the speaking section, then why spend more time focusing on that area when your reading results was only a band 5? So again, prioritize the areas which require the most attention and actually give those areas the attention. And don't give up. I know that sounds very easy, but the reason why I'm saying that is because sometimes it can be very difficult when you're studying the second time round for your IELTS exam, because this time you know exactly which areas are the most difficult and you're only focusing on the difficult areas. And a lot of the time that's not really that fun. But remember your end goal, okay, why you want to take the IELTS exam, and hopefully that will give you extra motivation. Now, tip number 4, and this is such an important tip, and that is get help if you think you need help. Okay, so a lot of the times when you're studying the second time round, you might have identified which areas you need help in, but you might not be able to study and develop in those areas on your own. Okay, this is especially the case in the speaking exam and the writing, and the reason for that is because both the speaking and the writing exam require an actual human to mark your work, whereas the listening and reading, you can take online tests and you'll get your answers back straight away, and straight away you can identify, this is the area which I struggled in, whereas your writing and speaking, they need to be marked. So if you are struggling in a certain section of the IELTS exam and you do not know how to improve, please try to speak to an IELTS coach or an English teacher. Now, I completely understand that sometimes this might cost you a bit of money and you might not have that much money. I understand, but remember the end goal. There are websites which offer discounts, or alternatively, you are more than welcome to join my Facebook group. I will leave the link in the description. This group is filled with other IELTS candidates who are often helping each other out. So if you have a question, there might be somebody there to help you. And I too am in that group monitoring what everybody says. So if somebody does give you incorrect information, I mean, it doesn't happen that often, but if they do, then I will correct them, okay? And remember, you can ask me a question as well in the comment section or on Instagram, whichever way you feel like it, but get help if you think you need it. Okay, now tip number 5 is attainable goals. So attainable goals simply means to set targets that are actually achievable. There have been so many IELTS candidates in the past who have contacted me and said, we've booked our IELTS exam and it's 2 weeks away and we need to get from a band 5 to a band 7. And unfortunately, that's not that reachable. Give yourself time, okay? Some people actually give themselves 2 or 3 months just to improve by half a band. Now, if you don't have that much time, that's fine, I understand, but don't stress yourself out by giving yourself less time to achieve big goals. So how much time is enough time? Well, unfortunately, this depends on the individual, so there's not one answer that just applies for everyone. But I would definitely give myself more time and prepare myself in that time rather than giving myself less time, because that's just going to make you panic and stress out. Now, if you reached up till here, I would love for your feedback. If you can let me know if you want more videos like this. Subscribe if you haven't already, and make sure you watch this video next, because that will benefit you in your speaking exam. Bye-bye.